There is a lot. Hello and welcome to Brandon times Ruby or X Ruby, whichever way that you want to look at it that way. But regardless, we are here again unwinding the industry bullshit and wankery that happens around fitness and fueling and nutrition, mind, muscle, metabolism, all of it. And today we are going to be talking about progress again, but we're also going to be talking about what leads to progress from the aspect that last time we were talking about, like the pregame, the mobility, where it all kind of like fits together. But that is really hard for you to swallow without understanding how it all fits together in one piece. And there's this huge quote that both Brandon and I say, and his words are, if you don't practice it well, you will hit a ceiling. And for me, it's, well, if you're going to practice, you're going to make that more permanent. So if you practice shitty or faulty movement patterns or faulty anything, then you're going to make the faulty the more permanent thing. And then you're going to have to work to undo that at the same time as building another. So you're just doubling the workload there. So that kind of fits into where that mobility piece fits in. And before this conversation, we were talking about just movement in general. And if we think about the squat and the leg press and just movements in general, the leg press isn't really going to improve your squat, but your squat will most definitely improve your leg press. And this can be related to so many things within your journey. Focusing on a particular thing and going really hard on that, it can either help the things that actually matter, the things that all work together, or it can be just exuding energy, or only working in that one direction. Or the third is the thing we don't want. It can actually be taking us backwards because we don't actually know where to put our focus. And this is where a lot of, especially women, you guys find yourself, because a lot of that attention has only been put into what you've been taught. And while there may be some teachings out there that say things that will help you, you're not going to see them. You're not going to hear them because you create and cultivate your own news feed based off your beliefs, what you talk about most, because Instagram, Facebook, Google, it's all feeding off SEO, AEO, whatever that thing is called, where it hit, like I looked up something the other day, or someone sent me something the other day, and all of a sudden it's all I'm seeing ads for. Like, no, I don't want ads for this thing. Go away. So you're creating your own bubble of what is the truth, and how do you know it's the truth? So there's that to understand, in that we don't actually know what is the one thing that can improve the things that we want to improve. So that's where coaching comes in. But I think that I'll introduce your segment by saying that training the right way, shifting your mindset, doing things the right way, it's not something that you're going to look forward to. It's not something that you're going to be like, yay, let's just do this, because you're not going to get the immediate reward from it, number one. But number two, you're going to get bored very quickly if you still come into it with that underfueled mindset. If you're training underfueled, you're not going to want to push yourself really hard. And like what you were doing wasn't working. So if you want to improve your performance, being in a position that will allow you to progress in any tiny manner somewhere is where you want to be, because otherwise the exact same thing that we just said, if you don't practice it well or allow yourself to bring everything up with it, you're going to hit a ceiling. Now, haiku, because we were talking about haikus. The haiku I'm going to throw at you to lead into this is: carbs are your best friend. You want physique, train for it. Carbs fuel your best life. So carbs, energy, that is all going to allow you to show up better for the training, to be cognitively in the best place for all of this, because when you're underfueled, you're not going to even want to think about half of this. But I'm going to let you take that off with wherever it leads you.
Yeah, we were having that conversation. I feel like I have that conversation at least a few times a day, every day, that carbs don't make you fat. That while fat is important for hormones, there's a ceiling. And I kind of liken that to like if I put more oil in my car, it's not going to run better. If I put less oil in my car, it's not going to run better. If I put the right amount of oil in my car, it's going to run just right. And it's like that with fats. Sorry, I know we talked about carbs, but I'm like, I think they play together, right? So, um, I have people who come in and I look at their food journal and they're eating all of this fat and they're not getting enough carbs. And it's like, well, we need to get your carbs up. They're like, well, I'm going to get fat. And I'm like, well, you will if you keep eating this much fat and add your carbs. Yes, because right now you're eating maintenance calories. But this is where the macronutrient ratio thing comes into play. And I think it's valuable to talk about the different effects. I like this breakdown of nutrition. Total calorie intake determines your body weight, right? Or total calorie balance, I should say, determines body weight, regardless of macronutrient ratios. Macronutrient ratios they affect the input or the caloric expenditure. They affect your intake a bit. Yes, yes, yes. But bottom line is that calorie balance determines body weight. Macronutrient ratios determine how you look, feel, and perform at that body weight. And food quality plays in there. It kind of affects everything. It's not the end all be all, but it is the sustainable piece. It is the piece that adds to your health, and it makes it a lot easier to control for those macronutrient ratios. I think we've spoken about, you can get that body with fake foods. You can get it it's just easier. It's healthier and easier with whole foods, but you can do it with fake foods too. But so then, okay, we need to add carbs. That means we're going to pull our fats down. Does that mean we're going to go no fat? Absolutely not. We're just going to get the right amount. Where was I going?
So, wait, because just on the calories, take this one too.
Yes.
Because we need to stop talking about calories that we eat. I think everyone's only so focused on the calories that we eat. And that's why I introduced it with that, because we wanted to talk about bringing the performance into this and why it all matters. Mm-hmm. Because none of that is really going to function if we're not internally functioning or if we feel out of control of our diet, because our mindset is going to stay chained to that diet because we try to grasp control of something. So if we can actually understand that part of it, it allows us to put all of that brain energy into this. And it's like, yeah, the oil is the fat, but the thing is we need to fuel the engine. The fuel is the petrol and oil are two different things. I know that much about cars, but we need to stop thinking of it's all about calories determining everything, because the calories you eat, the type of macros you eat, the type of food you eat impacts everything else. It impacts the calories out. It's not calories in, it's calories in, calories out, but there's also this whole system in the middle to go with that.
There's a lot of nuance, and it's interesting. People will often cite studies where, like, hey, this they compared a high carb to a low carb group. Like, here's the keto group, here's the high carb group. They lost about the same amount of weight. The carb group will look dramatically different in the mirror than the keto group, and I'm speaking from watching clients do this. Like, the low carb clients and the high carb clients, if put in the same deficit, will lose roughly the same amount of weight. The high carb clients will have a better lipid profile, will have better hormonal balance, will have less fatigue in the gym, will have more muscle because they will be able to build muscle because they're eating carbs. Protein builds muscle, but you can't build muscle without carbs unless you're on drugs. That's just the way of it, right? You're not going to build muscle without carbs. I'll say that again for the kids in the back. You're not going to build muscle without carbs, even if you're eating all the protein.
Yes,
there's gluconeogenesis and all that, but you're not going to build, unless you're an absolute beginner who has never worked out before. Yeah, you can build a little muscle. But that means you're coming up from a deficit in terms of the amount of muscle mass that is healthy for you. If you're already healthy and fit and you cut your carbs out, I don't know that you'll lose muscle, but you'll certainly lose detail. You'll lose glycogen storage. You won't pull water into the muscle cells like you used to, so your muscles will flatten out and look worse. Your performance will drop. Your strength overall, like maximum, like 1 to 3 rep max, may not drop, but your endurance under the sets that would generate more hypertrophy will drop. Go.
Oh my goodness. You just reminded me of a time where I literally cried in the gym so much, and it reminded me of when I was comp prepping as well. But about 20,
Yeah.
when was I with Max? I think 2020 or 2020. No, it was 2022. I just balled out in the gym, and I'm like, holy shit, I haven't been like this since I was competing. Because when I was competing, I was so underfueled. And then after I finished competing, I still had the same mindset of let's just do as much as possible. So I was training 6 days a week, and I was doing cardio astronomically, and I was doing like 7 sets of everything. And if I didn't feel something working, I would do drop sets. And it was crazy. I knew everything. Like I knew everything. I did exercise science at uni, but that doesn't mean that I applied it. It does not mean this is where emotion.
There's
We're not
there's
rational.
knowing and there's knowing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And there's fearing and there's emotions of being human when you fear something. Anyway, the reason I cried. So I was having really bad gut issues 2022 because I don't even remember what was going on, but it was like this whole hormonal bullshit. So my coach got me to lowball my carbs, and I'm someone who has not been under 300 grams of carbs in a very long time. And because a lot of the carbs, like, thought it was like SIBO or something, because I got a test that said that I had some sort of yeast infection. So then we cut the carbs out to not feed the yeast. Anyway, I was crying every single training session because I tie so much of my worth to my, not worth, but like my, how good I feel to how well my training sessions go. And for like a whole month, my whole training was just shit. I couldn't even sustain a training session. So I was training hard. I was training heavy for that person that was on low carbs. But if I compared that to my prior performance, there is a complete disparity between how well I performed, how much I lifted, how well I could give 100% from the start of my session, because I was on this was when I was on a smart training program. From the start of the session until the end of the session, I was smashing it. I was building muscle, seeing results. At the end of this whole phase, I looked like shit. Someone came up to me and was like, Ruby, have you lost muscle? You look tiny. I literally said, fuck
Ouch.
you. Like, I literally said, fuck you. I feel like shit. And then I started crying. I'm like, I feel like
Ouch.
shit. My gut is shit. I want my carbs and I just want
Yeah.
to perform and I feel tiny. And I lost like 4 kilos because of how,
Yeah.
like, from going from 400 grams of carbs to like 100, there is so much water and glycogen and training performance. Yeah. I just had to bring up that story. Like, it does not make you look any better. If anything, when you can attest to this, when I cut for my powerlifting meet, I felt like shit, looked like shit. Straight after weigh-ins, I had my best freaking physique in the world. I had obliques, I had abs popping, I had everything popping because I was eating like all the carbs. Like, people don't realize that.
Yeah, there's a picture of me at one of my backstage at one of the bodybuilding competitions I was in, and it's me eating a donut before I went up on stage to carb up.
So much. You would have been so vascular after eating that thing, after being so depleted, right?
Yeah. It was pretty good. It's funny how many people go into this thinking like, oh, so you got to cut all the carbs, but the reality is like, okay, so we talk like, okay, you need fat for hormones. Yeah, your carbs actually have a huge impact on your hormones as well, if not bigger. And I kind of look at it like this, and this is my own analogy. This isn't like, you know, anything from. I think I came up with this, but I look at it as like a number of switches. All right, so your hormones and all these processes and metabolic processes that go on in your body. Like, all right, here's your master control, you know, board. And so when you get enough fat, like, okay, these like few switches, they're on. Carbs, all right, I'm gonna get like 100 grams. All right, well, these couple of switches are on. I'm gonna get 200 grams. All right, we're gonna flip on a few more. 300 grams, let's flip on a few more. And carbs are crazy because it's like the more you get them, the more of these switches keep flipping on. And this is where the whole caloric output starts changing because of your macronutrient ratios. So the calorie balance equation does get more nuanced and confusing here. This person is eating more carbs and they're getting leaner because more things are kicking on, more parts of the engine are starting up. Your brain is metabolically costly. So you will burn, I want to say, it's been several years since I've read this, but I want to say your liver
like
alone, your liver
400
alone, yeah.
shit.
Yeah, I think more clearly above 400 grams of carbs a day for sure. Your liver alone needs 70, I believe it is, first thing in the morning, you know, and beyond that, like yeah, your brain's going to use a ton of it. And then you want to add performance on top of that, like especially performance that builds muscle or tones muscle, right? But toning is just building. I know the look you're saying you want is this like sleek, lean, that still requires you to build more muscle than you think. You're going to be the same size, but you'll be a different shape. And so
Oh,
in
yeah.
end of the day, carbs are good. You go into I was going to point this out too. Like, yeah, you mentioned when you're on low carb, like you couldn't feel the muscles working, and like, yes, that's kind of a signal. That is a signal that you're not getting enough carbs. I don't feel the muscle, the mind muscle connection. I can't make it. There's no pump. No matter how many sets I do, I just can't get a pump. I know when I've over dieted, or I go in a little bit too depleted into a bodybuilding show, like trying to get ready backstage, it was a nightmare. That was actually the reason I actually ate 2 donuts that day. I ate 2 donuts, a bag of candy, and like a ton of rice. And then you still need some proteins and fats. But it took a lot to get veins working again for me when I was at that show. And it's funny because no two shows are the same either. Like what worked for you before is gonna be different. You're at a different body weight. You have a different body composition.
Oh,
You have a different
mhm.
lifestyle.
Mine got
So
worse because I
yeah,
kept dieting in between. I didn't spend enough time building, and this is why it's so important. So I had to bring that part
gotta have
in.
that off season.
Because otherwise it's just going to get worse. And because if you don't give your body the ability to get used to fueling with carbs, storing carbs, using them effectively, it's not going to work for you the way that it could. And this is why we are talking about this, because you mentioned the mind muscle connection. I forgot I talked about that. Our last podcast, you spoke about the neurological connection with our hands and all that kind of stuff. This is the same thing, because if your brain hasn't got that fuel, if you feel depleted, you're not going to connect with the session. And what happens to people, Brandon? What happens to people when they feel like their sessions are shit, when they feel low energy? What happens when they feel like they're not progressing? What happens when they feel like they're going backwards? What do they do?
Oh, they get bored and quit usually. Oh, I
Mm.
did it. It didn't work. I tried it. It didn't work. Okay. You didn't try it. That wasn't part of the plan for you to crash out on carbs. The plan is for you to fuel yourself so that you can go. If I'm gonna drive, across the state, I'm not gonna put only a quarter tank of gas in my car. I'm going to fuel up. And then I'm gonna keep fueling along the way because I'm probably gonna get pretty low along the way. So I will keep fueling up along that road trip. Uh, yeah, I mean, we're gonna keep hammering this idea of like, don't be afraid of carbs, but repetition is what helps set things in stone for you. So carbs are good. Don't be afraid of them. I say that. What I'm not saying is go eat a bunch of donuts, go eat a bunch of cookies. I was disappointed as I was first learning about some of this at my first show, where I was like, all right, I get a lot of carbs. Look at that. This is great. I'm going to go get some Oreos. And I topped out my fats after 2 cookies and still had like 50 carbs to go, but no fat. So I was like, this
2 cookies.
sucks.
Two
Yeah,
cookies. Sorry, guys.
that
Two
was it.
cookies. So people are afraid of carbs. Do you realize how easy it is to rack up your fats when you're not even trying? Do you realize? I was having this
Oh,
conversation.
or
With someone.
tortilla
And
chips.
never tried it. Oh yeah, because they fry them in the oil. Like this is a thing.
Yeah.
We think that what is high carb. I had one of my family members, because I'm like, oh my god, it's cake and coffee, and then someone replied to it saying, no, it's called carbs. The things that you love. I'm like, that's not carbs. That's fat. Like
Yep.
cake is mostly fat. Like
Yep.
people have the wrong impression of what is actually carbs. I would not consider cake carbs at all. It is
Yeah.
fat. And
I always get a kick out of when people say pizza is carbs. They're eating pizza, so they're carving up. I'm like, what?
I love it. I love this chat, because I feel like just having this little like chat is going to help you realize that it is usually the fats that are holding you back. And most of the time you're not even counting them. Like what you're counting isn't including the stuff that you butter your toast with, the stuff that you flavor your food with. And that conversation that I was speaking to you about, it's like, well, actually you're choosing to stay stuck because you're so married to loving your fats, loving this, that, and the other. Well, you can choose to keep repeating the same struggles and then wonder why you don't have energy, why you can't recover, why you're tanking out after all of your sessions. Or you can choose to actually fuel your recovery, fuel your day, fuel your body with what it actually needs, which is carbs, and stop clogging it with the fats. And then people are like, oh, carnivore this, keto that. Well, do you know how bad that is? Like it's not it. Training to fat, because we want to talk
Yeah,
about
here
this as well.
let's touch on that for a second. go ahead and run the experiment. Do it. It's fine. Like I'm not opposed to you running the carnivore experiment. Maybe there are some foods you're sensitive to. What's important is after you're done running the experiment, you compare your blood work before and after. Maybe you're one of the genetic lucky people who, hey, that didn't have a negative impact on your lipid profile. Or maybe you ran it as a lower fat approach, which if you did that, I mean, you've earned my respect because that's not a comfortable thing to do by any respect if you're cutting carbs out. But go ahead and run the experiment and see how your performance racks up in the gym. You'll probably lose weight because you're cutting out a lot of entire food groups, not just one, but a few. And when you cut out entire food groups, you're probably not going to eat as many calories. And even though your number of calories burned for the day from the thermic effect of food and likely from activity levels and brain output and all that stuff, even though that number goes down a little bit, you're still probably going to be in a deficit and you will still lose weight. And of course, you're going to drop water, you're going to drop swelling, and you're going to drop bloat. And this all sounds like I'm trying to sell the thing, but
and you're going to feel like it's working.
And you're going to feel like it's working because in some ways, yeah, it kind of is. But in other ways, it kind of isn't. If you want to continue making progress, if you want to have higher quality of life, everybody I know who ran carnivore, they were successful at it for a short time, but couldn't sustain it. And I've been doing this now.
If you don't practice it well, you'll hit a ceiling.
Yeah. And even if you do, there's a time limit, at which point you will no longer be able to sustain it. Little foods will creep back in and you're just right back to where you started because you didn't address the root issue of your relationships with your relationship with different foods, why you're eating in the first place. Cutting out these things, it does reduce hunger. Like carbs, insulin makes you hungry, or insulin makes you whatever. It triggers more carbs, make you more hungry, right? And okay, I feel hunger is a good thing. I want to teach people to sit with hunger. But because you cut this piece of the equation out for the most part, you didn't get a chance to practice that. So what you did is you kind of numbed a few things out and you got a great reset. Okay, cool. You've reset. How can we go upward from here? Because this isn't going to be sustainable for the vast majority of the people. I have yet to see one person for whom it was sustainable. I think even, I'm trying to remember the name of the doctor who started the carnivore trend. He doesn't do it anymore. Yeah, he doesn't do it anymore, and I think he doesn't recommend it anymore. I could be wrong on that, but I want to say
he updated his thing and he now eats fruit and all that kind of stuff now because he realized the other parts of it. But the thing is, people will still cling to it because to them it works because we're looking at the wrong metrics.
Yeah.
But because I want you to take that part down because okay, cool, yeah. It's working. You feel amazing with it because I didn't actually think of that part until now. How it does connect together. People love this because they fear hunger because you've spent your whole life freaking hungry because you spent your whole life trying to diet. So it's like you fear this. I was saying this on the last podcast that you guys would have listened to, but it's like, how can you ever get to that body composition that you want if you can't do an effective fat loss phase? How can you ever do an effective fat loss phase when all you've ever done is test your willpower, test your discipline to say no to the cookie, to say no to this because it's going to go over your calories? Well, no shit, it's going to go over your calories, and no shit, you're not going to say no to it because you've already run that resource dry. You don't have that discipline. And I was thinking this the other day when I opened the fridge and I ate extra bread and it's like I keep going for a little bit of extra here and there. It's like it doesn't impact me because I'm not in a diet. I'm still fluctuating between my maintenance range. But if that's what most people do in a diet, if I had to say no to that bread because I was in a short-term diet and I know I'm doing it for a short-term period of time, and like I asked you the questions, are you going to get results from this? What happens if you don't feel like you're progressing, whatever? You're just going to a client came to me saying that here's my tracking app. I keep like she had it set on 1,200 calories, whatever. She's like, I don't really bother with it all that much because I would just feel like, what's the point? I never stick to it anyway. I always blow over. I can't stay consistent. I'm not seeing results. I'm like, is it that you can't stick to it, or is it that when you did stick to it, you weren't seeing results, and because you're not seeing results, you think, what's the point to everything? And she recognized it was the second aspect, that because she's not seeing results, what's the whole point putting in effort? And that's where a lot of people find themselves. And this is why you will never reach that technical failure that gets you the stimulus that you want in training. This is why you'll never reach that point of physique optimization, because you're never committing to anything for long enough, because where you measure progress, like I said, if you don't practice it well, you're going to hit a ceiling. And that's what you keep hitting because you haven't practiced how to do all of this well, because it's scary. It requires not seeing progress straight away.
It does. It's actually, I love the approach. We've talked about how we approach clients with their nutrition, and I love your process in particular where you start them at maintenance for until they've got a routine. Like, yeah, you if you don't have a maintenance routine down, then you definitely won't be able to have the fat loss phase routine down. So the foundation of all of this is the mindset that you go into it with. Carnivore allows you wiggle room. You don't require a routine. It's very self-limiting, much like barefoot running. You're going to run correctly. You're also not going to run a marathon, most of us anyway. Uh, that doesn't mean I want you to go buy the cushiest shoe available, but I think you should have realistic expectations and understand these things for what they are, which is tools. If you want that long-term result, I hate to say it, but statistically, it's not going to come from a keto approach. Like, I'm fine if you want to do that. The pendulum sometimes is so far on this side that it needs to swing the other way and be out of balance in the other direction for a little while for a reset. Cool. But let's get into our rhythm of like, all right, where are we going to live? Right? Because the bottom line is this: your body is the external reflection of your internal environment, and it never lies. You can do these things externally that can give us temporary reprieve and an opportunity to reset. Cool. But we still have to work on that mindset around food. And so, this idea of starting with a maintenance phase first to practice your routine, to establish what your habits are, to set up these are the meals that I eat regularly. These are my 3 go to meals that I eat on repeat. Yes, I eat the same thing every day. And because I'm in maintenance, every now and then I have a little bit more variety. Does that mean I want no variety in your food? No, I want all the colors of the rainbow in your vegetables and fruits, but that's part of your 3 meals. And that's not as hard to do as it might sound. Get that mindset down, then we can shift into hard mode. So the beginner version is like, all right, let's learn how to eat at maintenance. Because right now you're eating at maintenance, but it's coming like this. You're going into a surplus and then you're crashing. And then you're going into a surplus and then you're crashing. That's typically what happens is like, oh, I'm going to eat great throughout the day and then I'm going to have my ice cream before bed. Or I did great during the week, and then on the weekend I had all the pizza, and then like, oh, I'm dieting really well, except I'm gonna have a bite of off of my kid's plate. You know, they didn't finish their sandwich, I'm gonna eat that. They didn't finish their dino nuggets, I'm gonna eat that. Speaking as a guilty party, like I'm a dad, I've done that. But if you want to get this down,
it's very hard for you to put in those boundaries and say no to shit without that.
Yeah. So where we want to get to, I explain behavior change like this, and this is kind of where I wanted to go today is how do I actually make the change? And this is your comfort zone, right? And this is the zone where your results are. Well, oh, get out of your comfort zone. Like, actually, no, I don't want you to get out of your comfort zone. I want you to bump against the edge of it. I want you to think of it like a fragile little bubble. If I go too far out of it, it's going to pop and I'm going to snap right back. I can do this for 6 weeks. After that, I'm right back in my comfort zone and I regain everything. Right? How many times have we done a crash diet only to get back to where we started? The real key to behavior change is this.
Why do you feel like people stay stuck in that cycle?
Because they're impatient. I think they don't understand that this works just like anything else. And I think when you look at it this way, it becomes very clear like, oh, okay, this is just a universal principle. Nothing happens fast. You don't save up a huge savings account $1 million at a time unless you started with that, right? Most of us, we're saving like $100 here, $10 there at best, but we're doing it consistently enough that we have a retirement fund. It's the same idea with this and behavior change and habit change. You know, if you want to learn calculus, you still have to get through preschool first. You still have to get through kindergarten and first and second grade. And you still have to learn basic arithmetic, you know, and then you have to learn basic algebra and so on.
If
so
you think about it this way, before you get to the behavior change, because I don't want you to touch on that yet, because there's actually something I want to throw at you before the behavior change. It's funny because we pay off a mortgage for 20 plus years. Like our mortgage takes forever to pay off. And that's like a 20-year thing. And we only just start that in our adulthood, whatever else. But we have to live in our bodies for literally our whole life. And we're not willing to pay the rent that's due every single day because we're too busy wanting to cash out ASAP. And you know, when you go in, I've never actually hit a poker machine in my life. I have without coins in it, and it does jack shit because I didn't put money in it. But regardless, if you hit a poker machine and you keep hitting it and then you get a cash out, oh my God, I got dopamine. I have to see if I can keep going. And then you realize by the end of it, you lose it. And that's where the gambling addiction comes from. That's a sensitive issue. So if you're listening to this and you have issues with that, please seek help, because it is an addiction process. And a lot of people have addictive personalities, which is why a lot of people get addicted to the behavior change, to the dieting mindset. But because I wanted to bring this into the dieting cycle, I actually just put up a post and tagged you in it. Running a marathon is hard. Running it low carb is hard, plus dumb. Running it low carb and without shoes is hard, plus dumb, plus going to beat you up and leave you wounded. Running it low carb without shoes and without having prepped or ran more than to catch the bus when you were running late, ... Well, are you doing this for a good outcome, or because everyone is running a marathon and you think it's the stairway to heaven? Relate this to yet another diet, yet low carbing again, slashing bread, doing more cardio or training, another summer shred. A lot of the time, that is what we end up going to, because we don't know any different. We're not fed any different. And because I wanted to tie this into the behavior change, I think this is where a lot of people don't, like, because we don't want to go through the process of taking that longer route, realizing this goes back into what we said the last podcast, in that you'll never get anywhere if you keep beating yourself up or being hard on yourself, because every single stage of behavior change comes with something that no one talks about. Well, they talk about it a little, but it's not sexy.
It's getting better, but it's not sexy. It's not novel. It's not,
but it's relapse. People don't talk about the relapse that happens at every single stage of behavior change. And if you can't be okay with that in the beginner mindset of going through the relapse, now you can bring in the behavior change for that.
Yeah, actually, I can tangent just a little bit into this whole modular mind model that they talk about in neuroscience. You are not one personality. You actually are several, and the driver's seat changes out. That's why, like, the person you are in the morning and the person you are in the evening disagree so frequently. And the game isn't to put one person on a pedestal and to downplay the other and try and kill this other personality off. You're not going to get rid of these other pieces of your mind. The game is to get them to coordinate and get on the same page. So the part of you that wants that cookie and the part of you that wants those abs, actually, they need to learn to play nice together. And that's where behavior change can come into play in the sense of the following. So, like, this is your comfort zone, and this is where your results are. All right, what we want to do, the game is this. I'm going to stretch your comfort zone gently. I'm going to put you at the edge where it's like, okay, we're going to take this little piece of change, this little habit that you haven't practiced. Maybe it's just slowing down and being more mindful when you eat. Let's do that until it's automatic pilot. Okay, we bump the edge of the comfort zone. What happens is your comfort zone moves. So now, over time, as we continue to add these tiny habits that add up, these pennies that make dollars, that make millions, as they continue to add up and compound, your comfort zone has moved to where the results are. So the game isn't to diet temporarily to have a temporary outcome. The game is to set it up so that you're on autopilot, and that autopilot leads to the body you want. If we practice the habits, you will have abs year round without trying. You'll be one of those people, because not only are you now comfortable doing the things that led to the outcome you wanted, as a result of that, you're also uncomfortable doing the things that got you into that starting point that you wanted to get out of in the first place. Those nightly binges of Ben and Jerry's are no longer comfortable to you. You don't enjoy them the way you used to, because you met the problem at its root. And sometimes it has nothing to do with food. In my experience,
it never has anything to do with food.
Food is just the symptom. Right. It's just
I just want to say that I am I went into this seminar, this workshop that went for a whole week. I went into it one person. I came out of it a completely different person in just that 1 week. Do you want to know what that workshop and that seminar was called? It was called When It's Not About the Food. It was run by psychologists. It was run by people who talk about biochemistry, neurology, how it all fits together when it's not about the food, because it never is. Food has so many components to it. It is a symptom. Just like our body, our struggles, whatever it is that we end up complaining about, they're all symptoms. We need to get to the root of the problem. But many of us are too busy chasing, not wanting to sit with it because it's scary, it's unknown. But because you mentioned that nudging into it, I think the biggest part of that is building self-trust, because without self-trust and confidence, by making sure that you show up for every single thing that you say you're going to do, by actually holding every single promise that you hold to yourself, which is possible if you stop setting unrealistic expectations and expecting it to happen overnight, then you'll start to realize that, hey, I can trust myself to eat more carbs. I can trust myself to slow down in my training, because I know that I'm building this foundation. I built this foundation. I'm not going to get lazy. I'm not going to lose it all. I'm a completely different person now because I built things up a little at a time. But once again, it doesn't even matter any of that shit if you've never once celebrated your wins, because how many times do you fill out a check-in form for your coach or whatever else it is, and you emphasize and talk about all the things that went wrong and where this went wrong and this went wrong and this went wrong. And then whenever something's wrong, that's when you reach out to your coach. Whenever something's wrong, that's when you start complaining about it or writing some status on social media or go looking into Facebook groups to help save you. When do you ever do that same process, that same time consuming, stress inducing process, that focus? When do you ever do that for when things are going well? We don't. And I said this to my mom the other day as a metaphor for it. Mom's like, oh, I went with these guys because they didn't have as many bad reviews and they had a few good ones. How many times do you out of your way? But here's something. Have you actually went onto my podcast and clicked 5-star, just 5-star rating without a review? Have you just went and clicked that 5 stars? Or are you more likely to hear something that triggers you on some other podcast, think that some other podcast is absolutely bullshit, and then put a bad review on that? Or have a really bad experience with some company and go and put a bad review on that? How often are you more likely to give a bad review to something than you are to go out of your way, even if it's 2 seconds, to put a 5-star on something? Or if you order anything on Amazon and it's amazing, you just order it, move on with your life. How often do you go and actually thank them for the quality that they spend on things? I try whenever I can to pass that on and to review things. I reviewed about 4 different podcasts the other day just to give them 5 stars because I listen to them regularly. But that only just clicked to me about 3 weeks ago. I'm like, I'm asking people for reviews. I should start to just put 5-star ratings on the podcasts that I do listen to. Even if I don't interact with those people, I'm listening to them daily. I know how time consuming these podcasts are. I need to give them 5 stars because they deserve it. They're helping me. They make me a better person on the other side. They make me want, think better, do things differently. And that's the thing that we don't understand when it comes to ourselves as well. It's like even if you put this to other people, it's like you're so willing to make others look after themselves and give them great advice, tell them to do this, that, and the other, but you don't do it for yourself. We need to start doing good things, because when we do good things, it flips the switch. There's one more thing I want to talk about before this one's going to be short. Someone asked me, because I'm starting every now and then I have just high stress in before I go into a session, and then all of a sudden I enter a session and I'm just like, nah, this is shit, because my gym is underdoing renovations and things are all over the place and it's just a nightmare. But it's like I can't tune into that first set and the second set, and then I get down on myself because I'm someone who values my performance. I don't value the outcome of that set. I value the fact that I know that I gave it my best and I was able to push, and I got down on myself. I actually did half a set and then I stopped it, walked around, went back to do it, fucked it up again. I'm like, I'm going to give it one more chance. I only did 1 or 2 reps of it because I'm like, I don't want to fatigue myself. So then I went into it a third time and I didn't even get half the reps that I usually do without supporting myself. I'm like, no, I'm going to give this a break for 5 minutes, chill myself. And then this guy walked into the gym that I'm usually friends with. And then we started talking and I felt really good. And then I complimented someone and I'm like, I hate you because I want your arms. And it was a guy because I always envy guys' arms. It's like, that made me feel so good, just complimenting that person as well. But putting yourself into that positive frame of mind is going to make you do better, be better. And that second set, obviously, I pulled back the weight because I had the top set and then I had the down set, pulled back the weight. I locked in, I squeezed the shit out of the handle on the pendulum and I'm like, nah, I'm going to push myself through this. I need to get through this. I dropped the weight. I can do this. So I visualized it happening, and then I did it. And then I moved on to my leg press, and it's my favorite machine ever. And the fact that I was able to deliver it on my leg press made me that much happier. And it wasn't about the outcome. It was about being in that moment, attached to it mindfully, knowing that I gave it my best. It made me feel good on the other side. And this also comes into everything we just said. I was well fueled. I was well carved. Even the week before, the exact week before, I didn't eat since 6 hours before that session, and I did not have any carbs in me. But this is where carbs play a huge role, because my daily intake of carbs is 400 grams of carbs. So I have enough in there regardless to push that session. It's just that if I kept repeating it that way, underfueled, that's when my performance will decrease. So just because something goes well for you in a moment like carnivore or whatever the hell, does not mean it's going to continue that way, because if you don't practice it well, you'll hit a ceiling. I love how that's the theme of this. Take it.
Yeah, man, I have a lot I want to touch on here. I want to circle back here in a minute to, okay, how do we apply this? How do we start, especially with the behavior change thing? But to talk about a little bit about what you're talking about with, like, you do magnify what you focus on. If you're focused on the negative, it's all you're going to see. And you're training your brain to look for more negative. And in behavior change, the one of the important habits to develop is to constantly look for things going right. So when I'm doing nutrition coaching, the first question I ask in every session is, what went well since we last spoke? And your instinct, and a lot of times I'll get clients who their first instinct, well, nothing, I did this. I'm like, oh, no, back up. Something went well. On your worst day, you still have one thing that makes you smile at least. You know, on the day that I was there to watch my my dad pass away. On that day, I did have a smile. Something made me smile that day. And because I was practicing this habit, I actually remember it. But if you have to train that, that's a thing you have to focus on and actually practice. And that means that it takes time to wire your brain in such a way that it does that naturally. So I want to cite, there was a study, and I'll have to look for it so I can find a link for you. But there was a study done, and this might have been in one of the Sean Aker books, but where they tested grip strength on people after a little bit of negative self-talk. And they had a baseline for, like, all right, we haven't talked, nothing, just walk in, do the test. And generally, after some negative self-talk, I can't, generally is I think what they said. I don't remember specifically, but this is a thing I've seen in the gym time and time again. I can't leads to a decrease in performance. And I think they measured it out at 30%. I could be wrong about that percentage, but I remember there being a not insignificant decrease. And then the flip side of this, the third test was, hey, tell me something you're good at. Like, oh, I'm a barber and I'm good at cutting hair. Increase in performance. Substantial increase in performance, substantial noticeable increase in grip strength after that. So the takeaway there is, all it takes is for you to reflect on something that's gone well, something that you're good at, something that you're doing better than before, even if it's only 1%. If the binges have gone from 3 times a week, 7,000 calories, 2 tubs of Ben and Jerry's, and now they're down to 2 times a week and it's 1 tub of Ben and Jerry's, you're actually succeeding, because that's progress. When I am working with nutrition clients, we don't track binges in the way of like, oh, stop doing that. We use them as a barometer to tell us if we're making progress in the behavior change. This game should get easier the more progress you make, not harder, when it comes to nutrition and behavior change.
It's not just the boxes. It's not just the boxes you tick. It's the boxes that end up not being crossed.
Yeah, I mean, we leave so many. There's a great book on management. I think it's called The 1 Minute Manager, and he talks about, like, catch people doing things right. And then there was some other research. I'm trying to remember what book this was from, but he's talking about management styles, and what they found for the best performance in the workplace is when there is a 3 or up to, it's 3 to 6, a ratio of 3 to 6 positive reinforcement cues to every 1 correction. So the best managers, the people who get the most out of their people, have 3 positive things to say, and this isn't like blow smoke up your ass kind of positivity. Like if I'm looking at a client and I'm telling them why their bench press was good, even though their form sucked, it sucked less, and here's why. You had better control over that right shoulder. It didn't come up as high as it did. You did a better job controlling it, whatever the issue may have been. That right foot didn't dance this time, even though you still kind of looked like this. Your right foot didn't dance, so you had more control. And what you'll find, the next set looks even better. So we double down on catching people doing things right. And it's kind of like getting rid of weeds. You don't waste time going out to your yard pulling weeds. You can, but they're going to come back. What you do is you feed the other plants, you feed the grass, you feed the flowers, and they choke the weeds out. The positive will choke out the negative. So if all you're looking for is what did not go right, what's going poorly, that's what you're going to get really good at seeing. And you're wiring your brain to be less effective. You're wiring yourself to be physically weaker. If you're focused on what's going well, yeah, I had the cookies, but I stopped at 2. You know, that is a win.
Don't move on to that. Don't move on to the next topic until I just sum up what you just said. Just wanted to interject that.
Okay. So anyway, I'm going to recommend a couple of books, which is combine them, The Slight Edge and The Happiness Advantage. Combine those 2 books, read them together, because it's absolutely life-changing when you put the concept of the slight edge, which you'll get within the first chapter, but you still read the whole book because the repetition is important. It's about you spending enough time listening to this person so you get a feel for their attitude and assimilating that part of their character to become a part of you, because it is the better part that will help you be successful. And then you assimilate that alongside some of the concepts from Happiness Advantage, and you apply that mindset of, okay, I'm going to do a little bit of this practice every day and get 1% better at these skills every day, to the things in the Happiness Advantage, and it's absolutely life-changing. So anyway, there's your bonus.
Wait, don't move on to the
Don't move on yet. Got it.
I would just want to touch on one more book there. I do think that either Fully Engaged, or depending on where you struggle most with behavior change, Fully Engaged, which is by Thomas M. Sterner. It talks about like that. There's this analogy that I remember where it was talking about the road versus the path. Too many people try to take the road, which is that whole marathon thing that I was talking about, and the less carbs, this, that, and the other. Whereas life is like a path. And most of the time that path isn't forged because you are the trailblazer in your own life. And the path is going to be messy. You've never been, like, paths wind, roads are like cemented and they're going in one direction, but we usually take the paths, and we need to be okay with that. And yeah, that was just a really good one. But then if you struggle with the whole behavior change sort of things, I would also recommend The One Thing by Gary Keller, I think it is, because there is one principle that I remember in there that is just like, there is no such thing as balanced. Life is never balanced. It's always an act of counterbalancing. It's what are you pinning against each other, and what is the most important thing for you to focus on in that moment, because it will change every single place in your life. What are you willing to give up? What are you willing to not give up? Because if you keep trying to hold on to all the things, you'll get nothing at all. And that's the same with dieting. If you keep trying to hold on to highly palatable foods, you're never going to get anywhere, because that isn't going to allow you to actually stay into a deficit. And then if you're trying to build muscle, if you keep trying to hang on to where I feel like I'm fluffy, I need to stay lean. If I keep trying to hold on to that, then I'm not going to move anywhere. But before you move on, there was something that you mentioned with the you don't just fuel fat flowers, you need to pull up the weeds as well. But if you keep focusing on the negative things, like, why am I getting weaker at this? Why am I sucking at this? Then that's going to lead to other things that go wrong. Like, well, I just gave up that. So then you're going to perform worse. And then that's just reiterating the whole, well, see, it's true, because your brain will always try to prove yourself right. So if you're focusing in the wrong direction, you're proving yourself right. So yeah, you're doing everything right, but it's in the wrong direction. And I put that on one of my posts today as well, which I brought up because you reminded me of it. Results don't happen at the rate that your mind wants them to happen. They happen at the rate that your body allows them to happen. And then there's the psychology of behavior change. If you want to master a skill, no matter what that skill is, you have to be consistent. But an inch of movement in the right direction is better than a mile of intention without direction, or 10 miles in the wrong direction. Time is going to pass anyway. Which direction are you taking? Now move on to the next topic.
Yeah. There's so much I would like to jump off to, but I want to close this out with how to start. Like, where do we start with this behavior change game? Where do we start? Because this applies not to just nutrition. This applies to anything. Learning new skills like lifting. This applies to getting into the habit and routine of lifting. How do I make the gym as much a part of my routine as brushing my teeth? Okay, start small. If you have I would say, like, if you have a greater than, I don't know, 75-ish% failure rate, success, if you have a greater than 25% failure rate, in other words, for every, 4 tries, you fail once, like, that's okay. If it's worse than that, like you're failing half the time, let's chunk it down and make it easier. That doesn't mean you failed as a person or you're less good or you're less valuable. It has no reflection on that. It just means you're not in the grade you thought you were. You thought you were in 9th and you're actually in 8th. You thought that your skill set was here, it's actually here. Great, now you know that. That means you're better equipped to actually master this. Because if you think you're better at something than you are, you're bound to continue to run into struggles that you don't understand until you accept that maybe I need to take a beginner's mindset and assume I know less than I think I do. I shared something today that said the more you learn, the less you realize you know, because the more you and that's kind of the root of the Dunning-Kruger effect, where people, there's an inverse relationship between competence and confidence. The more confident someone is, generally, the less competent they are. And the more they learn about a topic, the more competent they become, the less confident they tend to be. You will hear many PhDs say things like, we think, and it appears, rather than definitively this. There are a few occasions where, like, yeah, we can be fairly certain. And that's usually the language you'll hear from someone who's very intelligent and very learned in a topic, is probably this, most likely this is what we think. So anyway, coming back to this idea of how do we start? We start small. We start with a beginner's mindset. It doesn't matter if you've been doing it for 10 years. If you've been doing it for 10 years, I used to teach music. And oftentimes we have to break habits in terms of technique. If you've been practicing that technique, you have to learn your arpeggios. You have to learn to relax your fingers when you play your arpeggios, which means, yeah, you can play it at 120 beats per minute, but we're going to slow it down to 40 to give you time to feel the other fingers in your hand so that we can break the habit of them tensing up as you shift and as you move. So you play, there we go. Now you can play the next note. You earn the next note by relaxing between. Same idea here. We're going to slow down and take a beginner's mindset and start small. So first, start focusing on what went well.
Don't move away from the piano. Don't move away from the piano. One more thing.
Okay.
This is where the weeds come in as well. And this is getting clear on what's stopping you or what you need to say no to. Being someone who I would have been a piano teacher by now if my mom, sorry, mom, didn't force me to practice the way that I did so much and actually knew how to speak conversationally to behavior change and speak in the way that we know how to speak now as coaches. But I wanted to get freaking fake nails because everyone was getting fake nails. Bro, have you tried to play a piano with nails this freaking long? I can't even type on my phone with nails like that slightest bit of yellow. So I wanted to get nails. And I also didn't like having to push myself to like make it into this huge chore, which is related to all of this. That's why I wanted to bring it up. So when like you want to become a master at the piano, we have to figure out what's holding you back. For me, forcing performance, forcing all of this from a place of lack of empowerment or lack of just forcing it over and over again isn't going to allow you to move that whole sustainable way. It's that whole, if you don't practice it well, you hit a ceiling. And the other that was holding me back was the nails thing. It's like, if I want to have both things at once, I'm not going to be able to have it because I'm not going to be able to be a master at the piano. And I was going for my 8th grade thing, which you need to have all 8 grades. Is it the same there? You have to have all 8 grades to be able to be a piano teacher. I was on 8th grade about to go for an exam. And then I just stopped. I'm like, nah, I can do what I want. Bye. And then I went and got my nails the next week. Like, this is where we have to realize that you're going to hit a ceiling. And now I want to go back to it. And that's the thing, and now I want to go back to it. And now you hit perimenopause and you wish that you've done it right the whole time all along. Do you see?
Yeah.
I cannot wait to the next podcast on
thinking thinking about the whole like pushing yourself for perfection, there's this movie Whiplash that is a very poor portrayal of music education where he's got this drummer in here playing and he's like faster, faster, and the guy's like sweating and the drummer like he starts bleeding and it's like this is the exact opposite of how you actually get faster. Um, when you're trying to work on hand speed, you slow down and you focus on how it feels and you focus on minimal efforts. The best athlete is not the tightest athlete. It's the athlete that can most rapidly oscillate between maximal tension and least amount of tension. Think of a sprint or a hang clean or any kind of very athletic movement. There is a moment of maximal tension and immediately there is a moment of almost relaxation. It's on and off, on and off. In the clean, you throw the weight up, and then there's a moment of like, all right, I'm actually pretty loose. Now I'm going to brace right before I catch. Because if I'm constantly tight, I'm going to be too fatigued to catch that weight. If I'm constantly tight, I'm working against the muscles that actually propel me forward. If I'm playing the drums and I'm playing with, say, the French grip and we're using the fingers, like if my fingers are tight pulling this way, then they're working against that as we pull this way. So like I would always teach my students to bounce the stick like a basketball, which you have to start out. Yes, it's kind of a faster technique to begin with, but you have to start out slow. I say all this to say, just to give the analogy of the nutrition, this is a universal principle and this applies to literally everything. You can't force yourself to be good. Being good is the outcome. You can't force outcomes. You have to focus on the process. And if you find joy in the process of practice, you're much more likely to see that outcome. If you find punishment in that process, punishing yourself with more workouts because you accidentally ate a donut, you will find that you're tightening up and you're slowing down. You're working against yourself. Accept that you are human and you will make mistakes. And that's part of the process. Use those as a gauge to tell you what habit you probably need to be working on. And it's not self-control. It's habits. Habits don't require self-control. That's why they're habits. Brushing my teeth is a habit, but it didn't start out that way. You do start out with discipline, but you don't live there. So pick something that is small enough, you have enough discipline to work on it every day and be at least just at 75%, 80% successful. So how do we start?
I know that we want to tie this
suspense.
up. I know that we want to tie this up, but holy freaking shit. Okay, I have 2 more books I need to recommend to this one. There's Steve Magnus, fucking amazing. You can also read The Science of Running, even if you're not a runner, but I would highly recommend Win the Inside Game. Any of my clients, if you're listening to this, please go read The Inside Game and please read Do Hard Things if you're like just both of them, because our perception of what hard is completely warped. And I feel like a lot of this, I find this with even myself, which is something that is like a therapist kind of thing. But because your elite performance and pushing yourself, etc., worked like you work with extremely successful individuals in their own line of work. A lot of us do. And that's the thing, because working really hard got you to that place. But that isn't something that we need right now. That's what got us to the place where this is where we need to relax a little. But also inside the winning game, there's an analogy thing where it's just like, well, you can be all uptight when you're running, but that leads to poor performance because you're so uptight. And that can even lead into, if you want to know
and you'll
about
fatigue out and get hurt.
Yeah, and you'll fatigue out because you've already had all this carbon, whatever else, like the thing that you exhale, whatever it is, you run out of that oxygen gas. But the other book that I would highly recommend is called High Performance, and it's by Jake Humphrey. High Performance, Jake Humphrey, I think it is, because what they do in there is High Performance, lessons from the best on becoming your best. They also have a podcast, which was really good way back when, because I used to listen to it in like 2020 to 2022. But now I don't like it at all because it's all just too much sport specific. But they get it's the mindset. It's the mindset behind everything they do. And you don't need to be at like this elite level where you're sacrificing listening. It's just that you need to realize what you're willing to give up, what you're not willing to give up. But on the last note, just to tie it back to how it relates to you in the gym as well, I missed out on a 6th rep on my leg press on my last set. I had to support myself for that 6th rep because I amped myself up too much for that last rep. I'm like, last rep. And I didn't actually put myself into a position to get that last rep because I was too overly focused on the performance of it and pushing it out that I didn't lean back onto the fundamentals that I knew. And that happens all the time if we don't lead into the fundamentals, which ties this whole conversation back together with self-control and discipline. You can't force that, and it's going to tap itself out. And you've already tapped yourself out with fat loss. It's not working. It hasn't worked. This doesn't mean that you're not going to get leaner. You're not going to lose fat. It just means that where you direct your focus needs to shift. Now you can sum it up.
Okay, summary. How do we actually get started? I'm just going to give away the formula here that I use, and this is what I used the first time I saw my abs without trying, and was able to maintain them and still maintain them year round, even though they're not as clean. They're always there, and these are the habits that I personally practiced. And I want to preface this with, this was a 2-year timeline for me personally to get these habits. And I don't think you ever fully master most of these. I think you just get better. And then you take a beginner's mindset again and you get a little bit better and you cycle through them. So the habits that I teach in nutrition coaching come from precision nutrition. And it's the first habit that we work on is always to slow down. Like, eat slower, put the fork down between meals, take a breath, chew your food thoroughly. The second habit is to stop at 80% full. So you notice those two are disconnected. Sometimes it's too much to ask for both. If I can just get you to be more mindful and more present, that alone, honestly, like, that's most of the game. Those people who, have really mastered this, you really can eat anything you want, because you'll find you don't need as much as you thought. If you master no other habits, master that. Be slow and mindful. Stop at 80% full. And I would add to that, ask why you're eating. There's an exercise that I do with clients. It's called the mindfulness raisin, but I like to use dark chocolate because dark chocolate is one of those things that only tastes good if you eat it slowly and don't chew it, especially if you get the really dark stuff. So oftentimes we'll get a bar of chocolate and we'll just eat it and it's gone. What we'll do is we'll take a small square, hold it in the mouth, set a timer for 10 minutes, close our eyes, breathe, and just literally meditate on the chocolate. And I know this sounds like hippie stuff, but the reality is, when you slow down like this and you're really mindful with your food, you'll find some of the things you liked because of a signal they send, not because you actually enjoyed them. Do this with a potato chip. It'll kind of rock your world in terms of, that's nasty. Like, does it taste good if I eat it fast? Totally. That's why I want to eat 10 at a time. Does it taste good if I eat one and I eat it slow? It kind of tastes terrible because it gets soggy and gross in your mouth. And so that mouth feel that's so important for that goes away. Anyway, after practicing this, after the 10 minutes.
It also works in the opposite. No, wait, because it also works in the opposite direction. There's a study with the cigarettes people and they want to quit smoking. Usually there's the resistance. I read this in the book that you recommended. Usually there's the resistance to wanting to quit smoking because they don't believe they can. So they go into it with the mindset of, I'll never be able to quit smoking, blah, blah. There's so much resistance there. Most of the time, we're not actually resistant to the therapist or the coach. We're resistant to ourselves. So the first step is, I want you to smoke. I want you to smoke. I want you to enjoy your smokes, but I want you to be present and actually enjoy every single puff. Who the fuck enjoys smoking? So then there are usually questions like, okay, so when are we going to start the quitting process? And that's already opened them up to the quitting process.
Yeah, there's a fun question that I like to ask, kind of along the same lines of, okay, you're kind of fighting changing a specific habit. Maybe you don't want to give up your nightcap, your vodka, your beer, whatever it is you drink at night to help you sleep, which it's not helping you sleep. It's helping you get to sleep, but it's actually interrupting your sleep. But anyway, no judgment. You do you. If you actually want to quit this, my first question is, okay, what would be bad about stopping? Not what would be bad about continuing. What would be bad about stopping? And this kind of sets your mind in this direction of like, well, that's not what I expected, but let me think about that. What would be bad about stopping? Because then I have to think about, what am I getting from this? What is it giving me? And if it's like any other addiction, it's not giving you the thing it used to, because whatever it was that started that addiction, because addiction usually comes from a need. You used this to survive some situation in your past, and that situation is kind of like a broken ankle. for the first 6 weeks, you walk differently while the bone is healing. And then after the bone is healing, you're still walking differently. And that's kind of how a lot of these addictive behaviors tend to start and why they
And then
hang
there are
around.
compensations.
They're compensations that you learned and never took the time to unlearn, because who tells you to do that? So it forces you to kind of think about, like, well, what is this actually giving? Oh, it's not serving the original purpose anymore. What would serve that purpose? Like, what do I actually need? And it's not that. And I've had many tear-filled conversations along these lines where we really dig into, what are you looking for? What is the thing that you actually need? Where is it in your body? Close your eyes and do a mind body scan and just feel, where do you feel this? It's not often in the stomach. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's somewhere else. But like, let's be aware of what it is, what the need is that you're trying to fulfill.
Can I use
So what would be
use that client example? The one that I told you about. She went from, because she slowed down, she's never slowed down, but her life is so chaotic. And this is, you have to be okay with the fact that you're not going to succeed every single time. But this goes back to not beating
not by a
yourself
long
up for
shot?
not
Yeah.
succeeding. Never beat yourself up for not succeeding. This is where relapse comes in. But what she did is she realized that she didn't want to feel shit by going to the binge eating that she usually does. So what did she do? She realized, I deserve to feel pretty. I'm going to go and get my toenails done and get my feet have a pedicure. And that was like, if you can create a toolbox of things that you do instead that can give you some sort of feeling where you slow down, but you need to realize that you deserve slowing down. Otherwise, you're always going to feel it. Continue. I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. So slowing down is it's a lot harder than it sounds, which is why I tend to separate that out from the 80% full habit, right? So in addition, you can't tell if you're 80% full if you're going too fast, because that signal takes a long time to reach your brain from your stomach. So slowing down allows you an opportunity to detect the signals as they come. And if you've been practicing that mindfulness, for long enough, you start to feel that fullness signal hit, and you will kind of start to automatically land at 80%. Because one of the games that we want to play is shifting your comfort level with hunger and your comfort level with fullness. The main difference between people, if not the only difference, really, in terms of from a behavioral mindset, from a behavioral perspective, between people who really struggle with their weight and people who struggle maybe to gain weight, is comfort levels with hunger and fullness. And yes, there are, people who experience much stronger hunger signals than others, and much stronger fullness signals than others. That's why their tolerance is so high or so low. So we want to make you as comfortable with hunger as you are with fullness, and we want to make you as uncomfortable with fullness as you are with hunger. That's a process. That takes practice. That takes you sitting with some discomfort intentionally. One of the sub habits that I'll throw at people as we're practicing some of this is practice hunger. Does that mean fast? No. Stick to your eating schedule. We've dialed in how big your meals should be so that you start feeling hungry an hour before your next meal. That's how you know your routine is on point, by the way. When you have a consistent, predictable schedule of, this is when I feel hungry, and I sit with it for this long, and then I eat. And I'm not starving myself. I'm still getting my carbs, and my performance is going up, not down in the gym. Because you can be in a slight deficit and still see a performance increase. And I would even argue, because I've seen this happen, if you're playing the deficit just right and you're right on the edge of like maybe a little like low maintenance, high deficit, you can build some muscle too, even as an intermediate. I don't know about advanced, but I have seen it happen. Anyway,
Beginner.
so the habits. So the habits.
You can get stronger without building muscle. People need to realize that.
You absolutely can. And okay, back to the habits, because I have to go. I'm on my time crunch today. I apologize.
Yeah.
Slow down. Be mindful. If I were to break that down into 2 words, be mindful. Practice mindfulness. That applies anywhere. Wash the dishes mindfully. Take out the book. Take out the music. Turn off the TV. Wash the dishes in silence. Even stop listening to us for just a minute, but then come right back and wash the dishes mindfully. Right? Fold your clothes mindfully. Be present. Feel the fabrics. Like, really sit there and look. Allow yourself to be bored, even, because that's where creativity comes from. If you're never bored, you're never creative. Slow down. Stop at 80% full. Include if you don't want to count macros, palm-sized serving of protein 4 times a day. That's pretty easy. Servings of protein can be, if you follow either one of us, you know what protein is, but just to make it simple, chicken breast, white fish, protein powder counts, but it wouldn't be the size of a palm, it'd be a scoop, etc. Things like that, shellfish. Uh, Fist-sized serving of vegetables. If you're new to vegetables, that can also be your fruit, which means it's going to count towards your carbs a little bit. Cool, we got 2 birds, 1 stone, whatever, but let's get good at including more plant foods. Cup-sized serving of added carbs. Thumb-sized serving of fats. Note the fat size is not this giant, oh, it's a tablespoon of peanut butter. And it's like,
I, I would
it's
say
like an
weigh
ice cream
your
scoop.
fats. Weigh
Yeah.
least weigh your fats if possible.
Yeah, I like to, but if we're eyeballing things, if we want to start really, really, really simple, that is about a tablespoon. And yeah, I've got that like hitchhiker something, but that's about a tablespoon. So if it's bigger than that, it's not a tablespoon. And that's it. Cycle through those habits ad infinitum. Yes, there are a lot more habits that we touch on and work on. There are like 10 or 20 more that we'll work on depending on the individual. But if you just master really those, you're gonna have abs year round. But that mastery process is long and it's slow, and it's the Kobe Bryant thing of I'm the best because I never got bored of the basics.
I do have to give a caveat to that because that's also not true for you guys listening to this. If you don't listen to our podcasts and actually listen to them and not just listen to what is sexy, but you're not going to have the abs year round. Not if you don't actually apply the principles of we need to be putting the efforts into our training and eating the carbs. Because if we're not building like a huge base of muscle, and no, a huge base of muscle does not mean you're going to get bulky. Do you know how long I've been trying to get bulky for? It's not going to make you bulky. But if you're not focusing there, you're not going to have the abs and the leanness, because that doesn't come from dieting more. That comes from fueling more. And just because before you sign off, I wanted to give a quick practical takeaway just to sum up what we started with, because you mentioned that you like my approach with the way that I set my clients up in maintenance. And this is the thing, like I have a client who needs to hit weight for her martial arts. And the first thing I said to her is, yeah, we're going to make sure that because something about consistency. I was like, yeah, we want consistency, but not the consistency of your cake batter, because she didn't want to eat the cake, so she ate the cake the other day. And this is the thing. So then what I said to her is, I want you to go into my fitness pal. This is a different version of it. I want you to go into my fitness pal because she has a weight to hit, so it's important. I want you to go into my fitness pal and I want you to plan out the whole week in advance. I want to not have to think about your diet fatigue, any of that. She's not in a diet phase. We're staying at maintenance, but we're going to get rid of all the discrepancies that can happen, all the nibbles, all the bites, all the chews. We're going to get you really freaking good at nailing all of this. And you'll notice, because of this maintenance phase that she's in, that her body's going to respond and it's going to start to feel leaner, be leaner, because now she's going to start to put all of that energy. It's going to be good fuel into being more active. And this is why it's not just about calories in. Most of my clients see the best body composition changes in this maintenance period, because it gets them really honestly raw to the actual, like, I'm giving you the come to Jesus talk with yourself. This is what your food looks like. And for once, it's actually looking like the way that you say it's looking. So now we're going to get results in maintenance, building muscle, because you're new to actually training really freaking hard.
Yeah.
That's my
And I should have caveated that, like, yes, the abs need to be built in the gym. They are revealed in the kitchen, but they are built in the gym. And getting these basics down, you can take things to a higher level where you're tracking and using macros. And I had a thing I wanted to say about that I was a fan of something you did, and I just lost it. I apologize. But yes,
the carbs.
Yeah. Oh, you were talking about the biggest body composition changes. Like, yeah, that's where you're kind of hitting that unicorn status of like, we're losing some body fat. We're not losing weight per se, but we're losing some body fat, and we're likely even building some muscle. And I have seen this on people who are at a pretty high level of development. And so it can really apply if you really balance it out. Does that mean I suggest gaintaining for people who actually want to get big, like dudes, which I know that's not the audience we're talking about, but like if you want to actually gain some muscle, and I would say women too, especially, you need to be in a surplus at some point where you're allowing yourself to gain weight. You
Yeah.
have to. You're just gonna have to. And does that mean you're gonna blow up and be a giant walking muffin? No. You just need to allow yourself some grace and accept that your new normal will look differently on the scale, but as a result, it'll look differently in the mirror once you're done. If you trust the process and you're patient and you go into that longer, I think we've talked about it being longer phases for muscle building than for fat loss. If you want to build those abs that are worth revealing, then you need to be patient. You need to be fueling adequately, and you need to be okay with the scale number going up with your clothes fitting tighter. But then once you get around to another cut, you're going to be very, very happy with what you see. And all of that time that you spent feeling overfed will be worth it. And you will look at that and you will be so glad you did it. And you will be so thankful that you were patient, because good things come to those who are patient.
Yeah, I love all of that. That's the best way to end this podcast. I want you guys to run away with this, implement it, and I hope that it actually inspired you to take some action. And like I mentioned about 20 minutes ago, please leave me a 5-star rating. I would highly, highly recommend it. And if you do, and there's anything that we could benefit, like that you could benefit from us, reach out to us and we'll pay it forward as well. We will be thinking of something together in the future. I did mention that to you as well. We'll think of something in the future that we will bring our listeners along as well, so that you guys can have something a little bit more practical to apply for 8 weeks and have you realizing just how good it can feel when you stop fearing this stuff. Because I feel like if you just gave it 8 weeks and ran with just a simple strategy that we will put together, that you will feel so much better and you'll be inclined to want to invest more into yourself because of how good you feel. But we will be talking a little bit more on abs and ass in the next part, because I think a lot of people feel like you can't have both at the same time, but you can't have them both at once at the start at the same time, but you can have both if you learn that fueling more and building more muscle is what gives you abs at a higher body fat percentage and a higher weight. Because the body that lifts heavy shit, that does heavy barbell rows, heavy squats, heavy deadlifts, even if you don't squat and you just do deadlifts and RDLs and pull-ups and barbell rows and all this heavy shit, that body is going to need a really strong base of core support, which comes with it needing to practice core movements to build a strong brace, etc., etc. So you're going to see the results that you want. But with that, hope you guys benefited from this. Love you all, and you will hear us in the next duo podcast. Bye.
Bye.